All right, we are live with Jeff Raymond, who is also known as the real Martian, the future of homesteading. Here's your YouTube channel, so if everybody want to go check you out on YouTube, but you're also the co-founder of Eden Grow Systems, which is a hydroponic grow system, which is also, just so everybody knows, now an affiliate partner of the Allison Morrow Show. So you can go to Eden Grow. Is it edengrowsystems.com/Allison or edengrow.com/Allison?
edengrowsystems.com/Allison. Yep.
Okay, good. And Allison with one L. So if you want to buy a grow system at the end of this, you can support my work and do hydroponic gardening at the same time. So just letting everybody know, a new affiliate partner. So thanks, Jeff, for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's talk about this. John Kerry is in the headlines right now, slashing farm emissions, critical to fighting climate change. John Kerry says, nothing new here. Honestly, I mean, it's just a guy that feels like a broken record at this point. Why don't we just start with this before we go into hydroponics and how you became the real Martian and what is the future of homesteading and food security and everything? What was your initial reaction to this when you saw this?
Yeah, I was really upset, Allison. And when I see these types of things, it gets me super jazzed. We saw this first starting over in Norway with the farmers over there and the nitrogen restriction, the war in Ukraine, bringing in that and how everything happened there. For people who don't know, a majority of the world's nitrogen fertilizers come out of Russia and Ukraine. And that already started increasing prices and making it really hard on the local farmer to be able to do their jobs. Then we saw the direct attack on the infrastructure there in Norway, people making things that I've said it for a while now, if people followed me, is it's very anti-human. I'm a man of faith. I'm a Christian. I see this stuff going on. It's all biblical if you ask me, and plenty of evidence to that. But if you're not, it's still a big problem because you all eat food. And when you have a talking head like Kerry, who is completely hypocritical, flying around in his jets and polluting left and right and taking care of his family and spending a bunch of money. And then he comes out and says, we need to make agriculture front and center and we need to attack the farmers. He didn't say attack. He said it very nicely, like we need to make sure that we focus on these things because the largest polluter of the planet is agriculture. And if we don't shut that down and take care of it, we're all going to die, which is total BS. Plants need CO2. The more CO2 that we have, the more greening that we have the planet. We have, thousands of years of data that we can go into that shows the cyclical nature of the climate and everything. And this guy's out there just coming after farmers, and people need to be woken up to what's happening is, in the United States, we've been blessed with abundance and a lot of food. And we don't feel the same pain that people feel in other parts of the world because we just have so much abundance. But those days are changing. And you see them coming after the farmers. Kerry's coming after the big farmers, except for the big ag guys. Those guys are okay. They can pollute and they can do whatever they want. But your normal farmers, your mid-scale, your multi-generational farmers, that's who they're going to go after. They're not going after Monsanto-based farms. They're going to go after the guys that don't fall into their little party and make life really hard for them. It's very unfortunate. I get super worked up about it.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I do have difficulty sometimes when I cover these topics with people because on one hand, like you, I do very much care about the environment. Sometimes I wonder about this constantly being the media focus or the politicians' focus of farming. It feels like a distraction in some ways because there's so many other problems with farming right now. And I'm not saying they need to come in and start regulating or whatever, because I feel like they've messed it all up with regulations.
We're from the government. We're here to screw your life up. I mean, we're here to help.
I mean, I will tell you this. I don't know a single small farmer that farms the way that I want to buy my food, or I want to grow my food someday that is helped by excessive or even really any government regulation, because it's just harder on them to meet the standards, just like being able to butcher, for instance, if you have a couple cows. So anyway, it's difficult for me because on one hand, I do very much care about the environment. So it's not, when I look at this stuff, it's not that I'm trying to say,
you're not anti-environment.
Yeah,
it's not like you want to you don't want the world to burn down. I think, Allison, I think that's one of the things, and you've had a lot of guests to talk about this, but a lot of other channels too. And the people who are starting to wake up to all this is that there's this big push that's going on to really put people into one of two camps. And they're both super extremes. Like, we've lost the middle ground, right? And just like you just said, I'm the same exact kind of person. I mean, here, I live in Washington State, where you used to be. In fact, I was, you would have been like 3 hours north of where I'm at right now. Just to put it in context for your audience so they know the history here. But, you know, I'm a person, I live up in the mountains. I love the outdoors. I want to take care of it. You know, as a Christian, we're supposed to be taking care of the garden. We're supposed to be stewards. But there's a push right now that if you say something like that in Washington State, we called it greeners, right? Because of the Evergreen State College. And, you know, it's like, oh, all you care about, you know, you want the trees over the people. Well, no, people are always more important than the trees, but you need trees to clean the air. I mean, it's kind of like we got to work together here. And you get the other side that if you start talking about how you need to feed people, that you all of a sudden you just don't care about the environment. Like, I care. I have a ranch. I care about these things. My animals live a better life than any other animals that I know, and we slaughter. We raise chickens. They're amazing. They're a joy, but they get slaughtered, and we take care of them. And that doesn't make me bad. It doesn't make me evil that I care about wanting to take care of the environment, that I want to raise my own food and do it sustainably. And by the way, when we talk about these big ag folks that are raping the land, you know, when you look at Monsanto and the type of things that are happening with farms that I would say have to, like, there's a lot of multi-generational farms that in order to stay competitive, this isn't against them, right? Because it's not extreme. I got to hold myself accountable. There's a lot of people that have to use Monsanto-based products, whether it be GMO crops or whether it be fertilizers or whether it be pesticides. They're forced into it because they want to keep their multi-generational farm. But that's the only way they can remain competitive. And the lobbyists have made it so difficult for them to do anything else. You know, the story of if you get a GMO seed on your land, all of a sudden all that stuff is now you got to move to GMO. Like, these rules farmers can't follow them. I mean, well, they are, that's an extreme statement, but it's very difficult for them to do the right thing. And back to the point is, I think you talked about being kind of distracted. Well, that is what they're doing, is it's getting people to be so mad at each other that we lose the ability to actually move forward cohesively as a human society. I mean, like, this is a really big problem. And it's one that the only way we can deal with it is actually by talking things out. But that's the one thing they don't want you to do. If you start going against the narrative, turn you off. You know, I mean, a lot of times when you're on your channel and you want to talk about things that need to be talked about, is like, hey, we got to go to Rumble. We've got to go over the other site. You know, we can't talk about it. It makes it really difficult. And farmers are stuck in a really tough spot.
Okay, let's talk about how you got into hydroponics then. Do you want to start though with the whole real Martian?
Oh yeah, the story's cool. I love telling the story. Yeah. So very long story, very short, is I was in the Air Force. I'm an aerospace engineer. I was in Iraq. I heard God telling me I needed to go home. I need to go home. I need to go home. So when my tour of duty was over, I came back home. My dad got diagnosed with terminal cancer 6 months after that. God is real, everybody. And then I was able to be there for that. But he was a big influence in my life. I have a lot of amazing family members, but he was a big guy in my life and taught me about the outdoors and horseback riding and hunting and fishing, all these things. And we've always wanted to be off grid. So I have since procured a ranch right when he was dying. Unfortunately, he got to see it right before he died. And it was my first home and hopefully my only home. I'm now married, and my wife was able to meet my dad. And I really wanted to just carry his legacy forward and figure out how to balance this technology side of me with I love being outdoors. I love horseback riding. I don't get to do it anymore, just too busy. But I started doing some work and figuring out how to actually balance the energy equation. It's a math, engineer version of, we don't want things to take more energy than, what we're getting out of it, right? So if you're going to be doing sustainable living in the north latitudes, then you need to be able to figure out how to survive throughout winter. And people have done that for a long time. But in today's world with technology, what we want to be able to do is not have to, grow all of our food in 6 months and then can it all and then preserve it all. And we try to do that, but it takes so much time and the world is changing, makes it really difficult. So I came up with this system design. my neighbor, who was Wrangler star, Cody, I think you know of his channel as well. A lot of your followers probably do. And he came over one day when we're just getting to know each other, and he's like, yeah, I have a YouTube channel. I didn't know who he was. And I see that you're building this huge habitat, which is 40 feet by 80 feet by 22. Thing's huge. We had rainbow trout growing in the middle of winter, 3 feet of snow outside. And I'm in there with my Carhartts on. And he's like, man, you look like the real Martian. And because the movie The Martian just came out, and I was doing all this because of space and things that I really care about and trying to figure it out. Like, if I could build this for Mars, it's going to work great here on Earth. And yeah, long story short, that got me some notoriety, got me a YouTube channel that stuck called The Real Martian. From that's the whole story. And got me to a space development conference down in LA, where we're talking about how we're going to grow food on other planets, which is really applicable to here. And I met my business partner, Bart, and we co-founded Eden together. And that's now we're trying to bring these systems to people to help them grow food, even if they live in the city, because, like 80% of the world's population is going to be living in a city by the year 2050. And I think it's going to be even higher than that and even faster, given what they're trying to do right now. So I'm out here trying to help people. I want to help feed. I'm a man of faith, like I said, and our mission is to help provide sustainable food and energy independence to local communities around the world. And we got a pretty cool system put together, and I'm happy to share it with people.
Okay. And just again, to let people know, you're an affiliate partner now of the Allison Morrow Show. So edengrowsystems.com/Allison with 1L if you're interested in checking them out and getting one. I know some of my audience is skeptical of hydroponics. And I guess I would say I'm curious about it because I'm a big soil person. I've had a lot of soil experts on the channel really understand the importance of soil to the nutrition in your food and everything. And I get concerned about input, like what you put on, like, I'm an idiot, but I just bought, I have to add soil back to our soil because we live in Florida. Sure. And it's like, there's no nutrients. It's all sand. Yep. So I'm adding stuff in. So it's not like I'm just, we're just singing Kumbaya out here or whatever and just praying for our soil to get better. Like we do have to add something. I know that that's one question that people have had about hydroponics. Like, is there always an input to it? And is it really sustainable? Of course, I forgot to go drive around and get my soil after I bought it. So I just left it at the store because you had to drive around to the back of the store to get it. And I totally left it there. So I had to pay twice on it. Anyway, so again, go to my affiliate sponsors and help support getting my second bag of soil because I'm an idiot. But let's start there. Well, actually, let me do this. Let me do this real fast because the kid is starting to, my producer here is starting to erupt. So before I give you a question, let me just get my wine read in.
Absolutely. Yep.
I guess
get the Malbec. Get the Malbec.
Get the Malbec. If you're growing your own food, whether you're growing it outside, or you're growing it a hydroponic outside, inside, you're growing in a garden inside, outside, you got one plant somewhere in your living room. Like, who cares? You're spending time making sure it's growing, and it's a great time to just have a great Malbec, right? What's better than, like, you're out in your garden, you're working with your food in the soil or your hydroponic system or whatever. I mean, there are very few things I think that go well with this, like an AllisonWinePromo.com. It's great buddy to help you with the gardening. 50% off some amazing Malbecs, 50% off shipping, 50% off the wine itself. All extremist altitude, between 6,000 and 9,000 feet, very remote regions of Argentina. One from the third highest vineyard in the world. One from the oldest vineyard in Argentina, over 200 years old. They hand harvested grapes for some of these wines. No filtration, natural fermentation. It's the best wine I've ever had. I don't just sell it. I drink it myself. So great way to keep me in business. And then also don't forget, if you're a coffee drinker. Oh, I didn't pull up my coffee. Hang on, Jack. Calm down. Let me pull up my coffee real fast so I can. Here we go. Okay. TwinEngineCoffee.com/Allison, where you can get USDA certified organic roast, light roast, dark roast, espresso, which I had this morning with my raw milk latte, and then also Katura tea, which is tea that you make from the coffee fruit. It's very good. It tastes like black tea. It's great for the summer months because you can put some lemon in it and cold brew it for 24 hours, which I usually do. Okay, Jeff, let's go straight to hydroponics then. Well, actually, let me go back in time. So you were telling the story about the real Martian and the future of homesteading and all that stuff. Did you have Did you have any concerns about food security for yourself personally that got you into hydroponics? Like being able
Absolutely.
to feed yourself, or was it mostly just like, hey, not everybody can live like us, so we want to create a system that allows somebody in Manhattan to, I don't know why you're still living in Manhattan. If you are, it's time to go. I don't know what I don't know what other signs you need, but
Should have gotten out. Yeah.
yeah, but anyway. Yeah, so was it you personally, or was it like just thinking about other people?
Yeah, no, actually, it's both is the answer. So I was sitting there one night, and again, man of faith. I'm a Christian and believe in Jesus Christ. And my wife and I were praying one night, like we always do for our meal. And I was saying the same prayer for a long time. At the end, I'd be like, "Thank you, Lord, for this food, and please help those obtain food who not have any." And just this one day, it's almost 15 years ago now. I just heard him say, Jeff, I've given you an education, I've given you money, you've got a great job. I was working for a Boeing subsidiary after I got out of the Air Force, making really good money. He goes, why don't you go do something about that? And to me, that was a big wake up call. And I think a lot of Christians need to hear a wake up call similar to that, is that we're called to do his work, not our own. And so I took it seriously. And my wife and I, we spoke about it a lot. We prayed a lot. And I was sitting there going, if we believe what we believe, if we look at Revelation 6, if we read Matthew 24 and we see what Jesus is saying about what's going to come, people are going to be really hungry. It doesn't matter where you're at. You're going to be hungry. Famine is coming. And I don't know about you, but I'm seeing the Bible come to life every day. You had just the interview with the pastor the other day from Spokane up the road here. And, I'm seeing more and more of it. People are starting to wake up to the truth that food security is an issue, and it's going to be an issue. It's foretold. So I took it really seriously, not only for myself, but for people I care about. I care. In fact, on my channel, I've had some comments where people have been very rude. People who profess to be Christian would say things like, if they live in the city, whatever, leave them behind, they're done. I'm like, that is not the Christian view at all. We're supposed to love everybody. We're supposed to do our best to help take care of people who can't take care of themselves. And if we live out in a place where we're blessed with food and abundance, we should be helping others. And if we've been given skills that can help others, we should use those skills. We should use those gifts. And that's how I got started. And we've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, trying to figure out how to get things going. What's the right way to do stuff? And I get the question a lot, like, how does this compare to dirt farming? And are you trying to replace dirt farming? And the answer is absolutely no. Doing it the way that God designed it is the best way you could possibly grow food, and doing it sustainably and rotating your crops and, using swales and a lot of the conservative things that people have come up with now is absolutely a great idea. We try to do them here on our ranch, though we have dry farming. So we have raised beds and all that. That we deal with as well. But my bottom line statement is people need to start growing their own food no matter where they're at. But we need Victory Garden like 2.0, where instead of just for people out in the rural areas, we've got people in the cities that can grow it. And what do those people do? How are they going to grow food in an apartment? Well, we've come up with a solution that will help everybody. You can pretty much grow anything. Is another thing, is a lot of the towers that are out there that do hydroponics. Ours does a subset called aeroponics. So we have no dirt. The pumps run like 2 minutes every 45, and we use hardly any electricity. We're like below a microwave, above a hairdryer. Right?
I used to have a hair dryer. I used to have a hair dryer until our 3-year-old decided she liked blow drying her hair with it, and now it's no more.
Left it on a little too long.
Well, she dropped it. You know how 3-year-olds are. When they're done with something, they just drop it on the ground, and it's like that works for stickers and pineapple, but it doesn't work very well for electronics. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Anyway, so, if people have dirt, they should be growing in dirt. But at the same time, there's a misconception. It's like, well, if I do dirt, I don't have to put anything into it. Well, that's not true. You have to buy compost every year. You have to have rotation of nutrients coming in, or you have to rotate your crops. You have to use cover crops, to put nitrogen back in the soil. And that's what we're seeing, back to that John Kerry thing. And kind of what's happening is we're seeing the big ag, basically any big ag, big farmer, big business, they're against the little person, right? They want to put you under their thumb. And I wanted to work with my business partner, come up with a business where we actually re-enable people again. But the challenge is that in today's world, people have become so used to the low cost of everything and so comforted, so spoiled. I would say, I think we could all be honest that we've been very spoiled, some more than others. But we have to get people to understand what it takes to grow their own food again. They did a study in Vancouver, Washington, down the road from us. And they're like, hey, asking the kids in school, where's your food come from? And they got answers like Trader Joe's, Fred Meyer's, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that is a correct answer, but that wasn't the intent. So people just are so disconnected from food these days that if I could do anything, even just talking to you, nobody needs to buy a tower or anything. Just listen to what I'm saying. Grow food, learn where your food comes from, meet up with your local CSA, your local farmers market, just reconnect your environment to your community and start growing food, or know people who do. So I'll pause there.
Okay. Well, before I go, I'm going to go back to Maggie's question in a second. That's what, between 1,000 and 2,000 watt. That's a big system. Is that what you?
Yeah. So it's about 120 volts. Doing math in public, bad idea. So you're about 120 volts. So when you got everything, 5 amps, depending on your tower. So that's about 600 watts to answer that question.
Okay. I think doing both hydroponics and in-ground is a good idea. Compost your waste from the hydroponics. Does he do aquaponics?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so aquaponics is amazing. For those that don't know, hydroponics is growing things without dirt, right? And within hydroponics, there's 2 subfamilies. There's aquaponics, which is, instead of putting nutrient solution in, you do fish waste. And I did that in the Hab, and our towers they're the only towers on the market that can do aquaponics. I've done giant freshwater prawns from your now new state of Florida, had them shipped up overnight, put them in the tower, started growing them. You just have to put the fish food in, their waste and everything goes up to feed the plants. Our towers can do that. Or you can grow with putting nutrient solution in. And within that nutrient solution, and this is just general knowledge for everybody, this isn't unique to our tower or anything, is you can buy those nutrients already, or you can make your own. And for people who are a little more advanced and understand what goes into building a fully rounded nutrient solution, you could do things like redworm composting, vermicomposting. Not really exciting for people if you're in the apartments in the city. You're probably not going to have enough space. But for those that have rural areas, you probably know this already. You could do vermicomposting. You can, of course, you should be taking your horse and cow manure, and you should be composting it, your yard trimmings, everything. That can all be composted down and turned into a nutrient solution, or a compost tea is what people call it. Or you can buy, pre-made stuff already that comes in bags, and it's very easy to store. We've tried a whole lot of different things. And what you're getting is years worth of testing and experimenting, all the good ideas that people have had, like, oh, hey, I've got this great, compost tea, and so we'll take it and we'll try it. And what we have found out is that a lot of those compost teas are really good for supplementation, but not for full up nutrient solution. So we have gone through all the ones that we could find on the market, and we found the closest one to being a fully organic. It's not fully organic. There's one component in it that's not fully organic, but we got the other 2 taken care of. So we're still working on finding a better partner. But the nice thing about the nutrient powders is that you can get a whole bunch of them. Like the little bag that we send is like that big, and that'll last you about 6 months, right? So you can imagine you talk about being able to get the stuff and be ready to go. You could have a 5-gallon bucket of this stuff and be good for years and have fresh vegetables coming off of the system, as compared to if you don't have animals. Imagine how many bags of compost you buy every year from Home Depot or Lowe's or Tractor Supply, Coastal, and bring those in and have to augment your potting plants and all that stuff. So that's a general rundown of how the nutrients would work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, don't forget, everybody, if you want to go on my editorial board, support my work, $5 a month to go one-on-one with some of the most censored people on the internet. And it's also, like I said, it's a great way to support my work. You get one exclusive media show a week with me and my buddy Bill Doris. And also you get all the questions ahead of time to put in for the guests. And I do a lot of posting about like our new farm, hobby farm. I don't know what you call us anymore. I don't. We're beginning in this. We have 2 goats that we got. Now we have, unfortunately, one of ours died, was killed by a coyote. We still have a female. We just got the male. But as it goes with the farm we have, he's like half her size. And I saw him mount her today. And I'm just going to say he's going to have some challenges. All right. He's going to have some
You're micro ranching. It's micro ranching. That's what you're doing.
I mean, I guess for like biology's sake, it's better to have a smaller male and a bigger female, in the sense of like, she probably won't die giving birth to his children because they're going to be like mini versions of her. That said, like, he definitely needs a stool. So I don't know how we're gonna do this, but he needs a stool. Okay, Wells Mortensen, big fan of isolated growing systems as an apartment city dweller for real crops with real yields. There's family farm upstate, always did. Soil-based hydro came off as a bit of magic. Could your guest explain difference in how plants get their nutrients in hydro setup and whether they miss anything that soil provides naturally?
Yeah, so totally understand the question there.
Oh, and Jeff,
Yeah,
hang
go
on.
ahead.
Let me add to that because there was another question from somebody too on that note. So I just feel like we should pair them together. Yeah, okay. So like what strategies do they have for apartment dwellers that want to duplicate the health benefits like mycelium of regenerative soils at home? So say similar, like on
Yeah.
that note. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so kind of the content of the soil and the nutrients that you get from it versus what you're getting out of the hydroponics. So
Yeah.
all systems, whether it's dirt or whether it's hydroponics, they all depend on your inputs, right? So we are what we eat. Food goes in our body. If you eat a bunch of donuts, you are what you eat. Same goes for the plants. So when it comes to soil, there's healthy soil, there's not healthy soil, and you can augment your soil. So a lot of the bacteria, the mycelium, the fungus that are in the soil, they're there breaking down nutrients. It's usually what they're doing, and they eat something and they poop out something. Basic biology here, and the stuff that they're pooping out is really good as plant food. In hydroponics, when you're doing that, you're doing the same thing, but you're replicating it with the inputs that you bring into the system. So you got to figure out the right nutrient solution, which gives you the nutrients that the plants need that also produce the plant profiles that you want. So what I mean by that is if you just went out and got like a really low quality plant food, we'll say Scott's Miracle Grow, for example, that stuff is garbage. It might work, but it's all garbage. And you are what you eat. And if you put that in there, basically you're eating petroleum. That's not going to produce a good nutrient profile. Your plants might grow up, but they're not going to taste right. They're not going to have the right nutrients in it. Not really sustainable, not really organic. But if you go out and do compost teas, or if you buy the right type of nutrient solutions, we use a salt base. So it has, all the salts, the primary nutrients are all present, and those all dilute in water and we're delivering to them directly. In addition, bacteria naturally come out of the air and come into the tower, and then they make colonies in the tower. So you do have a bacteria cycle occurring. It's just not the same as soil. And I'll come back to my previous comment that if you have land, you should be growing in soil. But what I want to make sure is very, very clear is, if you have land in your northern latitudes, you're only growing in soil for 6 months out of the year. If you have land and you're in Texas, you're only growing 6 months out of the year, unless you're dumping a ton of water on it and spending a bunch of money, making sure that they don't overheat. I don't know how people do it in Texas. God bless you all in Texas. In Florida, luckily you have a more humid, more moist climate where you can almost grow all year round, depending on what you're growing. That's a great place to be. But for the hydroponics, it's all about what you choose as your nutrient solution. And we chose one called Master Blend, and it works really, really well. And it has all the primary nutrients in it you want. And then you can also buy other things that you can augment. You can even do like a mycelium tea where you can take different funguses and stuff, and you can get the good stuff out of that, and you can put them in a bag. I would recommend you do it's like essentially like a little nylon sack. You put it in, and then it'll leach out into the system, and you still get all the same effects. It's like God's creation in a bottle. That's really, in fact, I have it on my board here. I believe God has given us everything we need to solve our problems by looking to his creation for answers. So I'm not here trying to say that what we've come up with is better than what God designed. Quite the opposite. I literally have based what I've designed off of what God did. It's just that you can't haul in a bunch of dirt to places, where it's really hard to get dirt.
Well, and also like KBAZ here, we have dirt, but it is 106 degrees Fahrenheit right now. Inside seems like a good option. Yeah. It's funny because I'm starting my garden here in Florida now, and it's the growing season is totally opposite of Washington State, where like right now the farmers markets in Washington are raging. Yeah. And in Florida, they've totally shut down. There's no local produce. Yeah, it's too hot. And, also we're just like, I haven't asked anybody about this, but I mean, we just get these downpours, I don't know if like that, you can raise stuff when you get like 6 inches of water within a half an hour. I don't know how that affects things.
Good drainage.
Yeah, I guess so. I am hoping that my husband's going to build a greenhouse for me in somewhat near future, even though we have literally, I think we probably have, I'm not even exaggerating to say we have 16 to 20 home projects right now, like on the honey-do list. I mean, I feel bad for
I
him.
understand that pain. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, but the greenhouse, I hope we get going, because I don't, you know, I also think pests down here can be a real issue, and I don't know, it's just all these things when you're in a new environment.
You're hitting on all the big stuff. Is that, you know, if you have time and you have, first of all, when I first came into learning how to grow food, I thought it was really simple. Hey man, all you need is dirt, sunshine, water, you know, put the seed in the ground and it all happens. And how ignorant was I, right? How full of myself. And I since have been humbled. God has taken me through that experience of like, no, listen, growing food is hard. And, you know, everybody can get a plant every now and then do its thing. But I'll say it this way. Next time you see a farmer, thank them. Thank them for all the crap they go through and the stuff they're dealing with, like John Kerry and the fights that they have, you know, just trying to get you sustainable, continuous, secure food. It is hard. And we're losing that as a society. We're losing the skills that go into making our food. We are essentially trading in freedom for chains, you know, because of comfort, because of the lack of time. We're all sitting here going, hey, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to go grow my own food. I'd rather go to McDonald's. I'd rather go to the grocery store and get this stuff. It's all done. It's like, those are chains. And I think people are starting to see that as these, I call them the Goliaths, because my company we're a David versus a Goliath. There's a bunch of big ag, big indoor ag, big outdoor ag, and we're going against the grain, because what they're trying to do is control, we call it from seed to stomach. They want to control the genetics so that it's all patentable, so that you have to buy it from them. Otherwise, they sue you because you're growing something or you're doing something with their seed that is not allowed, all the way to your stomach. And we're seeing major companies like Amazon are getting into indoor growing. We're seeing Costco. We're seeing Walmart. All of them want to be able to control from seed to your stomach. And I get started on Bill Gates and all that stuff too. But anyway, like, they want control. What we're trying to do is the opposite. We're trying to say, hey, I got to run a company. I got to pay my bills just like everybody else. Don't get mad at me because, you know, I've got to try to make money. But I want to make money by giving you a fishing pole and then teaching you how to fish. And I want to make growing food a heck of a lot easier than what it's been in the past by taking technology, because technology you can use for good or for evil. But I want to use it for good. I want to use it the right way. And I think we've done that. We have a computer controlled system. It takes 5 minutes a day to maintain it. It grows more food. It grows faster than hydroponics, which grows faster than dirt, uses less water, hardly uses any energy compared to other things. And the cost of it, when you run it out, even against dirt, it ends up being cheaper in the long run. It is more expensive up front, I'll give you that. But you're going to get more crops out of it. You're not going to be bending over. You're not going to be spending your time out in the hot sun. These are meant to go into people's garages or their homes or their apartments. And I personally think it's a really good thing. That's why I quit my job. It's why I risked everything, and why I'm in startup life. And I can't get all my honeydew list because I'm working so damn hard and I got no money.
You sound like my husband. Okay. So let's go back over to locals. Start at the top here. The plant fish system seems like a miniaturized version of what doomsday bunkers use. My question would be, what is OPEX for independently growing family of 4? Hydro being in support of normal diet, let us say during winter season.
Yeah, so your operational, well, you got 2 questions there. So one, we actually, Atlas Shelters, if you guys know them, they're the largest shelter bunker builders in America. Ron, he has his own channel, good guy there. He's had one of our towers before he got, he's another one of those people who are getting canceled. He had his shop burned down through arson, really sad. But yeah, people are looking at our systems for exactly that. And the nice thing about ours is they just roll in. You don't have to do any special design. They're essentially a refrigerator, only instead of storing food, it grows food, right? So you just roll it in, plug it into a 120 volt thing, set it up is like less than 2 hours. And it's not IKEA. That was a big thing. I hate IKEA. Like, it can't be like IKEA. But anyway, back to the bunker thing. Yes, this is definitely something you would be using that for. It was meant to grow protein and real food. A lot of the hydroponic systems out there are meant to grow leafy greens. Ours can grow root vegetables. You can grow carrots, you can grow garlic, you can grow onions, beets, We have a tower dedicated to potatoes, some real meaty food. And you can grow berry bushes in it. We have got some great stuff we've done with berry bushes. Lots of fruits. Strawberries grow great. Yes, you can grow cannabis. We get that question a lot. You can grow your own medicine, all those things. But then the operational expenses, what you're looking at is essentially your time and then your energy are the big OpEx. The energy is the number one driver, and it depends on your rate. But we gave it earlier in the segment. For us up here, it's like less than $1 a day is what we pay, but we have hydropower. So depending on where you're at and how much they charge per kilowatt hour, people want to send me questions, they can, and I'll get that. But based on them.
Jeff, too, can you add to your answer? Caliph Bob 51, is hydroponics harder and more expensive than traditional soil gardening? Is the payback higher? Can you answer that in addition to what you're talking about right now, since you're talking OpEx?
Yeah. So to finish the OpEx, your time compared to a garden on the system like ours is far less. 5 minutes a day, and essentially what you're doing is you're looking at the tower, and you're like opening up and checking the nozzles that are spraying water, because there's no dirt and the pump's not always running. That's it for that question. And then as far as growing hydroponics, I want to extend it out, so it's not just talking about Eden, but just giving people general awareness, is that it depends on what you're growing is the answer. And most people, I hate the answer, it depends, but unfortunately it is like the best, it is the truth. But in general, if we want to generalize it, because there's a lot of people who are very passionate about both of these things. So to thread the needle here is you're going to probably end up spending less time on a hydroponic system overall than a in-ground system. The reason why is, when you first get started with an in-ground system, most people think, like I did, is just start with dirt and get stuff in it and put water on it. And they miss the fact that there's pests. They miss the fact that there's little things called bunny rabbits, and there's ground squirrels, and there's varmints that come and eat your food. So then what you end up doing is you start building out infrastructure in order to support these things that you weren't aware of. And before you know it, you spent a few $1,000s on timber, you've got fencing, you've got all the tools that you need to cut and chop and build and screw in things, which, hey man, as a guy, any excuse to buy a tool, that's a good excuse. But you still have to spend the money. So with the system, when you go hydroponics, you tend to get a lot more of that stuff is already built, and they're meant to go places where people are at, or, that you can build out. Another one like greenhouses, greenhouses are great. But a lot of people use greenhouses to do their starter plants, and then you have a lot of investment on the greenhouse just to do starts, and then you move those out into the field. And for us, our triple deck tower has 3 grow decks on it. You could have over 300 plants in that one tower, and just have that tower in your garage or in your house and be able to get your plant starters out there and then moving them into the ground. So there's a lot of things when you come at the mathematics of it. I put a blog up on our site about the cost versus of indoor growing with our tower versus growing in the ground per square foot. So I normalized it all. So it was like, this is how much it takes to build a garden and get 1 square foot, and this is how much ours costs at 1 square foot. And up front, the capex, the capital that you spend up front on a system like ours, you get what you pay for. Ours is higher, more upfront cost, but not by much. And then it drops off as far as OpEx goes. Ours is just so much cheaper than even indoor ground, because people don't take into consideration the pump cost of running the irrigation and building the irrigation, your time, all those things going out there. And so it ends up kind of depends on what you want to do. I would say that if you're a busy person, indoor grow system is the way to go. Especially today, because I'm encouraging everybody, like I said, start a victory garden. I don't care, buy our system, whatever. Just start growing your own food. You're going to make a more safe, secure, and equitable world. And I mean that in the real sense, not in the sense of what the power elite want us all to believe.
That's funny. I know, it's like you can't use certain words anymore.
Yeah.
I looked over the website, Kenny Eagle says, and it seems a bit pricey. Also, it doesn't seem like something you just slip into a spare bedroom. Do they sell diagrams and instructions for the DIY crowd? Also, are there a lot of regulations on a state-by-state basis? If it has any benefit to society, I'm sure my governor here in the state of New Mexico will rain on the parade ASAP.
I understand that. Yeah, I'll start with the second half. No, there's not any restrictions. We're fully legal. We actually have export approval to go anywhere on the planet now. The first part of the question regarding, yeah, it can be spending. In fact, today, unfortunately, I had to listen, everybody. Yeah, you know what? I'm just like everybody else. I have limited funds and I got to choose what I spend money on. So I'm not one of those business people who's just trying to, be a shark and, take as much as I can. I try to keep my prices as low as possible. But here's the deal. I'm building American. I'm not outsourcing to Vietnam. I'm not outsourcing. I refuse to go to China. I don't believe in what they're doing there. I have a moral issue with it, and I'm trying to move all my components out of China. But we build the systems here, and that means our labor cost is higher, and that means the price of the tower and goods is higher. We use aluminum grade aircraft. Our tower is built to last. So you get what you pay for, but I get it. I totally get it. And unfortunately, today I did have to raise my prices again. The reason why, the price of shipping. Shipping everything has become ridiculously expensive. And it keeps going up. And to be a startup and to try to deliver things in today's world, and this is a shout out to all the startups, man. It is really, really tough. We have inflation. We're coming off the pandemic. And this is just me like going with all the startups out there. Is like, it is tough to be a business in today's world. And we talk about, being censored is, when you're like us, like David versus Goliath, we're not getting millions of dollars investment. We bootstrapped this damn thing. We burned our savings to get here, and we've been out there getting investment. In fact, we're doing in our Series A right now, and we're having a really hard time because all the big guys are kind of screwing us over. And it's hard. But on the pricing, the last part of that question was, what can you do in an apartment and DIY? So 4 towers, to put it really clearly, if you want 2,000 calories every day, that's 4 towers. And then it gets more complicated because what are you growing? What kind of meals and all that? But just 4 is the number. That's the size of a queen size mattress, right? So that's how big 4 towers are. And then the next part of that question was DIY crowd. So I don't have a diagram. I've been asked that before. I think we're probably going to end up having a product where it's like our control system, because the computer control is the bee's knees. That's what you want so that you can go on vacation and not have to stay with your garden. You want to be able to have computer control, but that's a real pain to put together. And I've spent over a decade with code that I have, so I know it's tested. But by the time you add up all the components, even if you go to Home Depot, you buy the shelving, you buy all the Rubbermaids, you get all the fittings, you get the lights, and you get all your little controllers that you're going to do really on the cheap, you're over $1,000 just into that for what we do, and more if you are competing with like our triple deck, and then you have all your time on it. So I did a paper on that on our website too. If you want to go check out, learn more DIY.
I have to ask this. Okay, after this, what kind of system does he use? NFT, ebb and flow, and then Casey Jones. This guy for sure grows weed.
Grows weed, yeah.
Now I have to ask you though, because you've changed your mind on cannabis through the whole hydroponics.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So I don't know. There's a lot there, but I'm throwing.
There's a lot. Okay. All right. We'll get into it. It's good stuff though. All right. So first of all, we don't use any of those. Hydroponics is the parent category. We don't use ebb and flow. We don't use DFW. We don't use NFT. We use aeroponics. Aeroponics is none of that stuff. It is roots hanging in air, developed by NASA. We're a NASA spin-off company, and you just spray the roots with the nutrient solution. That means we use less power because the pumps aren't always continuously running. Those other methods require a pump to pretty much be going all the time, whereas ours only runs like 2 minutes every 45 minutes. So that was the first part of the question. The next part of the question, or to stay on it, this guy grows weed. I have grown cannabis. I don't smoke cannabis, weed, but here's the story that Allison was talking to, because we spoke about this when we were first meeting with each other, is I was very much against weed. Of course I smoked it when I was younger. It made me feel stupid. I was not a big fan of it. I don't like the way it feels, but I drink alcohol. I don't believe in being an alcoholic, and I don't believe in being a stoner. Those are both bad. They're not Christian values. But having a drink or smoking some weed, I've since changed my mind on the smoking the weed because I started to study the history of it. And when I got into the history of it, to inform myself, I started realizing that back, I think it was 1800s, everybody was growing hemp. It was actually required that everybody grow some hemp so that they can make ropes for the navies. This is back in the colonies, when it first got started. and really going after the war. And then there was this one company, a guy, I forget all the details, but there's people who are probably following in all the details, and they're like, you know, he owned the printing press and the company that made the paper for this newspaper. And he saw that, you know, the hemp paper and the hemp pulp was cheaper to make, and he saw it as competition. So you got this deal going with the American Medical Association, which now says it's great to do certain things to young people that I totally disagree with. So I don't really trust them. And then the same kind of organization that said, hey, you should go get this little thing. And, you know, that's a great idea. We're seeing that work out for everybody. So we got this organization that started back with the Rockefellers telling everybody that this stuff is bad, but these petroleum-based products, you know, are good for you. And at that point, I opened up my Bible and I saw, you know, everything that God made is good. And so I've changed my mind on cannabis, but no, I'm not a grower. That's not what my company was made for. We're here to feed people. We are going to be selling to the cannabis market, of course, but that's not what we designed it for. And quite honestly, if you're going to design a tower 100% for cannabis, it would look different than ours.
Okay, you're probably going to have to defend your statement about being a NASA spinoff. Careful, Jack, because a lot of my viewers are very skeptical of
Don't
NASA.
like that. Yeah, no, I get it.
So I'm going to just like throw that out there for you.
Sure. Well, you know, I think, remember how, to everybody out there speaking to your audience, remember how earlier Allison was talking about how, you know, there it's like, hey, look at what John Kerry's doing, and over here there's this other thing. And it's like, and I responded with about the extremes, right? There's a lot of good people that work at NASA, like but I know what you're saying. U.S. government, everything I just said, right, is like, I don't really trust them anymore. I was former Air Force, and I get it. I don't trust my government anymore, and that's a really sad day. That's not something we should all be celebrating. Hey, yeah, the government sucks. Oh, I was right. Like, that's a really crappy way to be looking at things. What we should be sitting here going is, my government sucks, and I'm going to effing fix it, but we can't, because the world has changed. And that part, I totally understand where you're coming from when it comes to NASA and not trusting them. Plus all the climate data and all that stuff. I get it, guys. I get it. But here's the deal. There's a lot of good people who have done really good things. And part of what they've done at NASA, they have come up with some good stuff that we all use. So you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I'm finding also that, you know, all these old sayings, like you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, they're there for a reason, and they're meant to bring us back to the things that really matter. So as a NASA spinoff company, what I'm really trying to say is this is equality. This is not something that I dreamed up in my garage, because just as many of you would sit there and go, NASA is bad, a lot of people would be like, well, you came up with it in your garage, it must be crap. And what we're trying to do is communicate that I'm an aerospace engineer. We're a NASA spinoff company. We actually do have funding from different companies, as we do want to go off planet someday. And there's a lot of things I can unpack on that. So,
oh man, I'm not even gonna. If you're just everybody, just calm down. If we're not talking about the Earth or like flat Earth or what else,
we're definitely not doing that. Yeah.
We're not going to go down that rabbit hole today. All right, the moon landing. We're not going down that rabbit hole. We're just going to go right back to locals for a second. Okay, computer controls are getting so good. It's a waterproof Lego modules being wired together today. Reliable.
IoT.
IoT on low voltage and budget. Saw a whole country hotel chained into using all waste heat and electricity and supporting hotels beer brewery. That's interesting. Yeah. Sustainable truly recycling helps offset costs, and the beer tasted better for the very fact of being brewed by guests' hot showers. Stuff works, albeit at the expense of time. Okay, let's go back here. Best friend's cool house growing up in the 70s had shag carpet and an indoor fish pond around the perimeter of the basement, and man, that smells. Is there an odor?
Yeah, great question on the odor one. If you're doing hydroponics, what you're going to get is a natural, not the fish odor. It's actually very pleasant. You know, if you're growing indoor plants, if you've ever grown indoor plants, you get a lot more oxygen off of it. So you're going to have that type of smell in your house, which is a refreshing one. If you do grow fish waste is fish waste. So there is going to be an odor, but it'll be less than that. It really depends, because the waste is being cleaned, right? Aquaponics, what you're doing is you're taking the fish waste and you're moving it up to the plants and bacteria. And there's a natural cycle that establishes itself in the towers. And that bacteria breaks down the ammonia, which is most of the smell. And it turns it into, I always get this wrong, nitrites, nitrates, ate the ites. Yeah. nitrates, and then no, it turns into nitrites first, then nitrates, and then that feeds the plants, and it returns clean water. So aquaponics is really good. It's not the same as just having an aquarium, but that would be the type of smell that you could expect off of anything growing live animals, is kind of the aquarium, because you're keeping it clean. It's not a fish pond where it's just, fish swimming around in the crap all day long. You are having a system that's more clean, like an aquarium.
Oh man, that just reminded me. It's funny. I went to this fish market here for the first time, trying to find like a local fish person, and of course I interrogate everybody. Where does your fish come from? Where does this come from? Whatever. And so I was asking about the salmon, and like, okay, where's the salmon come from? Scotland. And like, is it wild? And she's like,
farmed. Yeah.
She goes, it is. She's like, it's in nets in the water, but it's in the water. I'm like, okay, that's how you farm fish. It's just say it's farmed. You know what I mean? But it's like, because people, anyway, it's just funny. Like, depending on who you ask, to someone that's wild, a fish in a net pen in Scotland in the ocean. I'm like, but that's not wild to me. So anyway,
well, a lot of it is the same way. It's like, so that's kind of the big ag kind of way of things, is like a lot of people think, especially when I'm doing investment, they're like, can you scale this? Can you scale it and turn it into the big ag thing?
Right.
The thing is, no, you don't want to scale it. That big thing is not sustainable. You're seeing them collapse. You're seeing, like the big ag, they're raping the land, they're taking the nutrients out of it, and they're having to shove all this petroleum-based stuff back in, being dependent on a whole bunch of processes. And those people make money, but not the farmer. And then with the big, the aquaculture, the farming in the ocean, what they're doing is I think we got to do everything we can to feed the planet, but you got these big pens and all the poop is coming in, and it's so concentrated. That's the problem. It's not that poop is bad. It's that it's so concentrated, it falls to the bottom, and it destroys that local ecosystem, and it upsets everything. And these are all systems that are meant to work a certain way.
Not to mention, like, one of the things that I learned living out in the Seattle area was, like, if you're farming a non-native fish species and then there's a break, a jailbreak,
big trouble,
and then, or the net pens, like, and, as salmon, I mean, that's a big issue right now. Salmon recovery in the Pacific Northwest, like the wild salmon stocks are at least this is what we were always told. I don't know, maybe this isn't, but the local fishermen, the sports fishermen, the commercial fishermen, like, all complaining there's not enough salmon to go around. And then there's the wildlife, like the killer whales eat the salmon. And salmon was just like a big,
it's huge,
high dollar issue. Yeah. And so then I remember several years ago, one of the net pens broke. The company Cook Aquaculture basically lied about it. They said that it was like high tide or something, but it turns out that they weren't necessarily maintaining their pens. And then all the politicians that were probably letting them like skirt the rules were like, we're going to get rid of aquaculture, so I don't know. It's just it's interesting, but just thinking about it, like, one of the issues at the time was that you would have a non-native species now swimming around and then potentially basically having like a higher survival potential and like as a predator for your local fish. And then I just remember that being kind of a mess. But, then again, I have done like work with people like the tribes who were doing aquaculture because they don't have salmon anymore. So they're trying to figure out how to raise it. Maybe there is a way to do it that's more sustainable.
Yeah, land-based aquaculture is very doable. And that's where like our towers and what I did in the Hab, we had rainbow trout. Called my local fishery. They came up and delivered. I had to have a license. But, the nice thing about what I was doing, they were happy with, is because I wasn't taking trout and putting them in a pond. So our Department of Natural Resources, they didn't really care because I was just putting them into dirt, bags essentially in the ground, or troughs in the ground would be a better explanation. But yeah, growing fish can be done sustainably, but it's really like for everyone, it's about decentralization, right? Everybody wants to centralize everything. It's like, hey, I just want to go to the big box store. Actually, you don't. It's that episode of South Park where South Park is like forecasting so many things, but they're like, Walmart comes in and they want to destroy Walmart. So they destroy Walmart after everybody had a job there. And then they start a new small business. Well, then all the small businesses buy each other out. And eventually they turn into Walmart again. And they end the episode, well, crap, here we did it again. Humans are lazy. We're all lazy. You all know that. I know that about myself. Everybody, we all work hard. There's a lot of us do a lot of things. And there's people who are lazier. But in the end, path of least resistance wins, right? And when it comes to convenience and comfort, we've all become, myself included, I throw myself under the bus first. I become so comfortable that I get scared of losing that comfort. So I support things that keep, like I buy from Amazon. Why? Because I live out in the country and UPS comes to my door. Who else is with me on that one, right? But it's not a good thing. What we really need to be doing is decentralizing all of these things and getting back to local community. So when it comes to fish and doing it sustainably, it would be done locally. That's how it was designed to be. That's how it should be. And we're getting pushed further and further away from that. I think there was another question though that the guy had that I didn't.
Let's go back.
Sure. Did I miss it?
In this area of locals, well, that was a new question.
Oh, okay. All right.
We did
the
odor,
carpet. Yeah, the smell. Okay.
What provides, yeah, I don't think I had gotten this. What provides the nutrients to the fish? In nature, the fish typically eat various bugs as part of their diet. Is store-bought fish food the only source of food for the fish? Talking about the fish that I said to people.
Aquaponics.
Yeah, exactly. Or nutrient base for your plants.
Yeah, great question. Again, you hit both of them there. Producer, producer exploded. So to help answer that question there, while the producer's being taken care of there and straightening things out, first, like, subscribe, notify to Allison's channel. She does a great duty here for society and bringing everybody together and helping talk about news. That's why I followed her for a long time before we are talking here today. So if you're brand new to her channel, she's awesome, and she does a good job telling you the news in a way and what's going on in the world that's not biased by the overlords. But back to the question is, when you have aquaponics, when you're doing that, then your input is your fish food, and you can either buy fish food, which we did a lot of searching for fish food, because if you just go buy like Purina, cat, dog food, not very sustainable. Their fish food is really, really bad. It's not sustainable. It takes like 10 fish to make one fish worth of food, and they like drag the bottom and get all the bottom fish and just kind of destroy the environment. Again, it's just a bad idea. It's not sustainable in the long run. So we did a lot of searching, and we found one company, I think it was out of Colorado, I forget their name, and they were very close to being organic. And I don't care about organic certified, because that whole thing's just a crock of poop and just a big system to get people to pay more money. They make the people who grow things normally have to go through this long bureaucratic process, whereas the people who grow things, GMO and pesticides, they could just do whatever they want with no process in it. So I don't care about the label organic, but I do care how it's made. And that food that is made there, I think it was Colorado, they did a pretty good job. But your fish food is important. You can do your own. And the way that you would do your own is by vermicomposting. So you would take like your cardboards. You have to be very careful about your cards though, because if they have colors in them and all that, those dyes and all that will get in there. And you can actually create your own fish food. And essentially, like chickens, your fish could be like chickens where you're throwing them scraps.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, Jack is actually starting to stand up, which is fascinating to watch. Oh. But he sat down and bit his lip. So that's what happened. Everybody's okay. Everybody's okay, but that freaked him out. So anyway, I gotta go.
Well, we did the plug. We got the like, subscribe, thumbs up. Okay, Allison's doing a public surface, so you're good to go there.
That's so funny.
And buy high altitude Malbecs.
Good. Okay, good. Can't ever promote that enough. Isn't Elon Musk's brother involved in this kind of gardening project? And have hydroponics been hit with regulations like traditional farming?
Yeah, Elon Musk's brother does have a company that was doing larger scale indoor growing. I think he was based out of Wyoming is where he was doing that at. And that's part of that big company, us, David versus Goliath, is that they really want these really big, we call them FIBs now, farm in boxes. And FIB is an appropriate acronym for them because it's not really true. They consume a tremendous amount of energy, and because of the way that they grow things inside, you don't get the same output, and their HVAC costs, the heating and cooling of those things, is also very expensive. So their CapEx is even more. But we're seeing that pretty much in indoor farming in general is most of the indoor farming companies that Plenty, I think it's Aero Farms, back in New Jersey, a lot of them have failed because their CapEx is so high And they chose to go this really high technology route, like robots, like from Japan, the big ones that move around and just grab everything, like 6-axis control. Basically, you have to have like a master's degree to be able to work there. So their labor costs are high. The factories, they built them from the ground up, and or they moved into a big building and had to redo the whole thing. So they were just really capital intensive, and the only thing that they could end up selling to make money was essentially microgreens and high-end crops. And a lot of indoor farming, suffers from that. But the thing that we tried to do is not make those same mistakes. Is we designed a system that can go where people are already at, so your HVAC costs can be taken care of. And then we chose really low power consuming methodologies like aeroponics instead of ebb and flow or DWF or NFT. So that's how we approached it a little differently. Is like we needed the energy equation to balance out, and those large organizations like Elon Musk brothers, they didn't come at it that way. They came at it more of like, how can we make something really Gucci that you can sell to the restaurant?
Okay, let's go right back over to locals. We did critical thoughts earlier. How useful is it if you just want to grow fish? Plants are what my food eats.
Yeah, if you just want to grow fish, you could get a tower and you could do that. But if you just want to grow fish, get an aquarium. That's the better way to go. It's going to be cheap. And get a 60-gallon aquarium. You need the stand, so by the time you're into it, you probably have about, I don't know, depending on how nice you want to get, maybe $500 in today's world, and you could grow some fish that way. You're not going to have big ones. There is another company called Nelson and Pade up in, I think it's Pennsylvania, and they do really like larger scale aquaponics, like they're 100% aquaponic. And I wouldn't sell you something from my company that's not who I am that doesn't work. So if you're looking at just wanting to do fish, just go to an aquaculture company and you would really have better service there. If you want a tower, I'll get you one, but I think you'd be happier if you had just something dedicated to growing fish.
All right, I think we're close to the last question. Okay, seems like a good idea for those of us in Arizona where it is too hot unless you have strategic shade and garden at an alternate season. Even then, plants die, especially right now. And okay, a good one to send to my son. He's been looking into hydroponics for his apartment. So I think we did them all. I'll go back over to the live chat and see if there's anything here. Just highlighting Caliph Bob 51 so it won't get lost. Can hydroponic system be outside under patio awnings? Can hydroponics? Okay, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't see that, so thanks for asking about that, Wells Mortensen.
Yeah, so it depends on what you're trying to grow, first of all, and then it depends on your local temperatures. So if it's 120 degrees outside under your patio, you're gonna have a hard time growing pretty much anything. But let's assume that you have decent temperatures. So you're somewhere in the we'll say 60 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit kind of range, and you're in the shade, then you could definitely put the tower out into that type of location. It has all the lights and everything with it, though. It was not designed as an outdoor standalone system. It was designed to be inside where people are at. Again, think the folks in apartments and all that. So you could put it out there. What you don't want to do is put it directly in the sun, and that's for two reasons. First, sunlight, if it gets in the cracks and crevices and stuff, you'll start getting algae blooms. And we've designed the system so that when the light's coming from the top down, we have covers on pretty much everything that reduces water evaporation, and it reduces any light being able to get into the system. So we basically don't have any algae blooms that can hit normal hydroponic systems. And that's why if you do hydroponics in a greenhouse, like what I did in the Hab, you'll see the algae show up. But the second reason you don't want to really put in the sun is that the life of the fabrics and stuff that we use, we have flexible fabrics that are the grow chambers, they're going to be shortened. So instead of like 20 years, it's going to be like 15 years. But you don't want them in direct sunlight.
All right. Let me see, Jeff. I think we're just going back to the YouTube chat. Every shady grow shop has the... Oh, my husband is calling me right now. Obviously, he's not watching the show. but I couldn't click on the comments because that was coming in. Every shady grow shop has the full data sheet for every part of a set they sell. I don't know what that's about. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. So our bill of materials, of course, I have a list of parts that I buy and put together, but I think that's probably in the context of DIY. Like earlier, we're having someone ask, like, do you have the DIY kit? And if you're going to do DIY, you wouldn't take my bill of materials and be like, I'm going to build this myself, because it ended up being the same cost. And the only thing that I charge you that's different is the labor, and all the lessons learned that go into the R&D. But actually most of our, we hardly have any margin. Farming is a tough margin kind of industry to be in, but you could go online. I mean, if you really are a DIYer, I encourage you to go online. You can do like I did. You can go watch The Real Martian. I have lots of lessons learned on there about what I did. I tried doing the solar mover, moving the sun through fiber optics. I did that. I did my control system. I started with Arduinos. I moved to Raspberry Pis. I didn't know how to do any of that. So you could go through that learning experience. I encourage people, like I said, the real message here and what I'm hoping to have with Allison's community is grow food. Wake up, grow food. I don't care how you do it. My tower, whatever. Hopefully this conversation just inspired you to take a moment of pause and be like, you know what? Maybe I should start growing some of our own lettuce. Maybe I should grow our own strawberries. Grow one thing and do it right. And then grow two things and then grow three things. And have your friends over, have some high altitude Malbecs after you like, subscribe, and notify to Allison's channel. And, take some basil and grind it up and put it on some bread and sit there and, grow your own basil. It's amazing. And
I just found out, actually, I was at our local farm store with the senior producer, executive producer now, Lily, and I was talking to the owner about pesticide use because I'm trying to avoid using pesticides, obviously. And I'm thinking greenhouse, or I don't know, like, what are my options? Because Florida's got a lot of insects. It's a very insect prone swamp area, right? So
big insects.
Yeah, like big insects. I know. And honestly, Lily loves it. I mean, she loves bugs. She's what is that? An ornithologist? No, that's birds. I don't know. Anyway, she loves bugs. So she might end up becoming like some kind of bug biologist, but as long as she keeps them outside, I don't mind. Actually, I don't mind if she brings them inside. I hate cockroaches, but that's my limit.
Cockroaches are no fun. Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, I was asking him about what he does because he also gardens and he doesn't use a greenhouse. And he actually was talking about how he plants basil next to his tomatoes, and he says the basil works as a natural
companion planting
repellent. I thought it was very interesting. So anyway,
garlic is another good one. Garlic is another natural. There's sites that are just dedicated to like companion planting, but those are amazing things you can do. And there's certain plants.
Isn't it cool though that those go really well together?
It is.
Them, like on pizza or with your
If it tastes good on a pizza, you should plant them next to each other.
Yeah, I know. My husband writes, I was like, I'm live, right? And he's like, no, I didn't. Sorry, tell everyone I said hello. So yeah, thanks a lot. Because like, what do you need? He had to go back to the farm store anyway. All right. Long story short, I wanted to ask you. Going back to this before you go, because I know you got a heart out in 3 minutes. Why, when you're talking about the issues of food security and independence and everything here on Earth, why would you want to go to another planet?
Yeah, well, like I said, without stepping on all the things that in today's world we have to re-question and look at. When I step outside at night, and since I was very, very young, I look up at the stars, and before I understood what I now understand to be God's creation, I was amazed. And I was a Star Trek guy in Star Wars, and space was always the last frontier. And I have a pioneering spirit. And I've always wanted to go to space. And that's why I joined the Air Force. I went to Embry-Riddle, and that's what I was on track to do, is be an astronaut. And I still would love to do that. And I would love to explore. I want to explore God's creation. I joke with my wife and my family. We're getting ready for our family reunion. They've heard this so many times. It's like, when I get to heaven, all I need is a starship, which all the Christians right now are like, again, don't be extreme. Just get the intent. Is God made this amazing creation. I mean, it just like the Bible says, his creation speaks to his majesty. It speaks to it. The genetics and the stars and the systems and the plants and everything that's out there. It speaks to intelligent design, and ain't little green people intelligent design. It's the creator. And I would love to go explore it. And so, that is my heart, and that is something that I would love to do. And I think God gave me that spirit, and it gets me in trouble because pioneers usually get shot in the back, you know, because they're up in the front. But all the political stuff aside, and Elon Musk and Mars and all those things, the reason that I started off and why we're a NASA spinoff is I was saying, if you could design a system for Mars, it'll work really well here. And that's the whole point of the system that you saw me do on The Real Martian, is thinking about how do you, let's just change the paradigm here. When back in the day, when people were sailing across the ocean, they had their big ship. And regardless of the shape of the planet, it doesn't matter, because they still had a big ship and they were out there for a long ass time. And they had to bring everything with them or figure out how to get it along the way. And when you think that way, which is what thinking on Mars is like, okay, I'm going to this other planet and I need to grow my own food, but I need power, I need oxygen, I need CO2. And then balancing all of that, that's what I think I figured out in all my math and, you know, doing all the work over the course of the last decade and a half now, is the energy balance equation to that problem. And if it works on Mars, like I said, it works really, really great here. So hopefully that addresses the question regarding the space side of things.
Yeah, I'll have to have you. I've been meaning to do something on NASA space, and like it would probably be a 24-hour nonstop live stream
The
on
marathon.
like every like theory on the moon landing, on Earth, spinning ball versus flat. I mean, all that stuff. I want to just go at it, but I want to have like a rowdy debate about it, because I think that would be like the best way to, because I don't know jack about NASA, any of that stuff, right? I'll just be the first person to say like, and I'm frankly, like, me personally, not that interested in it, because I will tell you, I've said this before with other guests, the more I talk to people about like the information war and everything, the less interested I am in spending like hours and hours and hours of time trying to get to the bottom of these rabbit holes. I just rather like go out and, again, grow food, hang out with the goats, push the kids in the swing. Like it's just, you know
do
what I
the
mean?
things
Like,
that matter. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I guess I just don't have any interest in spending like so much time on a virtual platform world, I guess, when there's, you know, I can actually know something for real out my front door.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
A lot of people,
I'm not interested in learning about it, but
yeah, no, I mean, there's the bottom line is that everybody's searching for truth. You know, we all want to know what's going on. And I think that the reason that those things, I love watching the channel, The Why Files. And that's another plug for another YouTube channel is, you know, when I have time and I get to space out, I love watching his channel. He does such a good job. What he does is he presents the crazy ideas. And then he says, here's why they could be real. And then he says, here's the other side of the story that the people who want to believe in them don't believe. And he does a great job with that. But still, I think, you know, when I was in the Air Force, Allison, nothing like the experience that you had at King 5 and all that, but I was in information operations. I did satellite operations, design development, and then when I was in Baghdad, I did IO, information operations. And part of that, of course, is PSYOP. That's what everybody talks about. But IO is so much more. It's about the news. It's about what you see, propaganda. You know, it's not just these crazy things that change your mind. It's not the pamphlets dropping. It's not just the pamphlets dropping, but it's all these things. And what I see going on, like with the flat Earth and all these things, is a lot of people are waking up to question the narrative, which is a good thing. But then the thing that piques my interest is I was part of the intelligence apparatus. I worked at one of the 3-letter agencies. I had that experience. I'm not a spook. I didn't do any of that stuff. I'm not like super cool like Jack Ryan or anything, but I was exposed to those things. And at the time, I thought it was way cool. But now I'm starting to see that the influence that the intelligence community has on our nation and on our government and on the world at large is inappropriate. It is out of the balance of power. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in the Constitution, and I'm thinking that there's an organization that's outside of that that's doing things, because we're seeing a movement of anti-humanism happen. So when it comes to, like I was plugging you earlier, one of the reasons I love watching your channel is because the gifts that I've been given are to design technology, to work with people, to help lead them. And that's what I'm using my gift for. I don't have time to go watch all these different things, you know, and collect all the data and be a maven like yourself. You're a point of connection, and you bring all these different people together and you synthesize it a lot of the time. Sometimes you have long format like this one, but you make it easier for me to consume and try to figure out what the hell is going on out there. And I'll end with this. It's like, as a believer, y'all need to go read Matthew 24, because Jesus' first thing is, says, be careful you're not deceived. So I think bringing it back is, everybody who's out there looking for the flat earth and all that, also go to the beginning of Genesis, where he says he hung everything like a sphere in the sky. But anyway, so you can just don't be deceived. So ask questions and come to people like Allison, and go to other channels as well, and consume multiple sources of data. I think, Allison, you've done a great job of that, like explaining your story of leaving the news, and being like, all these people are just telling me to say this one thing, and you should be going to other sources and checking it out. So I think that's why there's such a hunger for it, is people are searching for truth. So open your Bibles.
All right, last couple quick comments, because I know you got to go. I supported Kerry in 2004. I now consider him to be utterly evil. I go to space all the time, Vera DeMilo says. After I smoke marijuana, I grow in my hydroponic garden.
Yeah,
And
I can see that.
I don't know if you wanted to answer these really quickly before
Sure,
you go.
I can. Actually, the meeting that I had has been pushed back 30 minutes, so I got a little bit.
Okay. How close can I get to the LED? Do I need to add extra lights? Form some plants to get fruits? What happens if one LED burns out? How do you repair it? Does that question make sense to you?
Yep, it does. Yeah. So LED is an array, right? Square. Let's try to get in the screen there. So it's going to be like that big, depending on which tower you have. So our towers are designed for different types of crops. There's essentially 4 different types of towers: single deck, a tall deck, a triple deck, and a double deck. And should be self-explanatory, but each one has either one growing deck or multiples. And for the you ask a question about the power of your light, the person probably knows that different plants, like fruiting plants, they need more light. The lights that we chose that go on the single, the double, and the triple deck, they have plenty of what's called photosynthetically active radiation, or PAR. You don't measure LED output in watts, you measure it in PAR, because that's the amount of energy that the plants are actually getting they can use. And ours have plenty, and you can go check that out on the sites. We're still buying those lights, unfortunately, out of China, but we're going to be designing our own here soon. And then on the big tower, the tall deck, it actually has a much larger light on it, and it's on a light mover. So you can go in and just hit light up, light down, and it'll adjust it. And you want to keep that about 8 inches, maybe 12 inches off the canopy. So as the canopy grows up, you raise the light up until you get to the top. And that tall deck allows you to grow things up to like 72 inches, which is about 5 feet.
Okay, and then last one here, I think. Also, what connection has the controller? Hook it into some kind of computer without writing lines and lines of code to get it communicating with Linux? Is that a question for you or somebody else?
Yeah, no, that's a question for me. All right, so our system, the person asking this, you probably understand what's going on, so I'll talk to you, is we start off with Arduino, which requires, you have the controller and you plug everything into it. Then we move to Raspberry Pis, which is a Linux-based system. That's the operating system like Windows for everybody else. And those Raspberry Pis, they're not designed, they'll tell you right up front, they're not designed for a production environment. They're meant to be like things that people do on the side, but when you're doing it for real, they just don't last. And we had that problem. So we ended up designing our own control system. I have an electrical engineer on staff, and we designed it together, and we took all of our lessons learned, designed our own control system. And then what you do now is you just plug your stuff into our controller, which then runs out to a tablet. We upcycle used Android tablets, and we install our software on them. So you have a tablet that you do all your typing and interface with. It will create a local version that you could connect to through your laptop or your computer or your tablet, and you can have a bigger interface if you like. And you can also connect that to the internet if you like. We design our systems where you don't have to connect to the internet if you don't want to. But what you'd get with a control system from us is the control system, a wire going out to a tablet, and the plug that comes in, and then you'd have to bring all your stuff in and terminate it on our control system. And we are going to be making that as a standalone product here. We're just going through trying to find the right casing to put it into.
Okay, let me just go back to the website to make sure. Just let everybody know again, it's Eden Grow Systems, and they are now an affiliate partner for the Allison Morrow Show. So if you're going to go buy one, you might as well go to edengrowsystems.com/Allison, and then you can support my show and get your hydroponic gardening system, whether you want to go to Mars or you think Mars is just a big fake.
Whether you want to grow your own cannabis and go to Mars, or if you want to do it real, or however you want to do it.
Whatever you want to do. All right, Jeff, thanks so much for coming on. Any final closing words before you go?
No, again, I'll plug your channel, Allison. I think you do a great job of bringing people together and helping communicate, and the world needs that today. And, you know, I'll say it for everyone else. If you don't know Jesus, go check him out. Give him a fair shake. I think you'll find he'll change your life. He did mine.
Awesome. All right. Oh, Jack just hit the button to make the desk go up. All right. Say bye, buddy? You got to go. The producers are like, hey, it's cutoff time. Yeah.
Hey.
Say hi.
Oh, cutie.
Yeah. Here's it. Give him a little smile.
Yeah. Look at that smile. All right there, kiddo. Yeah.
That's cool. Yep. All right. Cool. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. Thank you.